Hey guys, I'm doing a video. It's been a long time. I wanted to do a video today because there's a lot going on lately with my clients, with friends, with myself. It's been interesting energy, I would say, the last few months, and especially just this last week. I think there's a new moon today, so I think that's part of it. But what I wanted to share is a very interesting image that I got when I did some self-healing meditation work today. I've had a rough few days, just kind of suddenly being faced with like really old insecurities, old vulnerabilities, stuff that I thought I had moved beyond. I honestly felt like a 13-year-old girl, like just feeling all insecure, like nobody likes me, I'm not cool enough, I'm not good enough, like just really weird old stuff that was getting triggered by things that I knew up here had absolutely nothing to do with me, and none of it was personal, but the way that I was receiving things I was reading, things I was hearing, was getting translated through that lens of very old insecurity, and it was triggering a lot in me, and I was really surprised because this hasn't happened in a very, very long time. So as I've been talking with various friends and other healers and my clients, this is happening for everybody lately. Like very deep work is happening, and what I wanted to share was I got the message that from my higher self. She was like, it's time. You just need to release a lot of this. And for me, I hold it in my heart chakra because I am very sensitive, and I have a lot of. I feel a lot. I feel so much. I can tell. Like most empaths, I can feel when anything's off. And I think when I was younger, I took all of that really to heart, even if it had nothing to do with me. It was hard for me to filter out what was personal and what wasn't, because I felt so much all the time. And so even though I've done a lot of work and I'm really clear on feeling out boundaries now and knowing that it truly isn't personal almost all of the time, and that it comes through your lens of what you're filtering, those old wounds were still in me. And so what she showed me was that we needed to do a big release, and it was really cool. I wanted to share this because it was a very unique image. So in my meditation, I sat with her, and she put her hands in my heart chakra, which I see is very bright emerald green, and she kind of moved some stuff around in there, and all of a sudden, this is so my team. I always see things in symbols, really creative symbols. All of a sudden, all these old Rolodexes, like old school Rolodexes, about this size, came tumbling out of my heart. And I was just looking at these piles and piles, like hundreds of them. It just kept stacking and stacking, just spilling out of me. And I was like, what is going on here? And then I realized that every single, I guess the little cards that you put in the Rolodexes, every single card was kind of a catalog that my soul had made of wounds or old injuries or old misunderstandings or old missed communications, things like that. Every card had an imprint of a specific moment, a specific conversation, a specific interaction. And because there were hundreds, it was because it was 43 years worth of apparently a lot of insecurity around feeling like I was being misunderstood, or the wires had gotten crossed in communication, or maybe somebody was upset with me, or maybe I hadn't explained myself clearly. It was covering everything, basically. And I've done work around all this stuff before, but I think she was showing me this is like this is a very deep layer of stuff that apparently my dear little soul, my little heart, was just holding on to protect me. It was almost like my heart was like, we're going to keep a huge catalog of these Rolodexes that we can just flip through just to make sure that none of this ever happens again. So, of course, we all know that doesn't work that way. And what was happening was, because these are very, very old wounds, and I haven't had any recent wounds like this, they had risen to the surface, and they were a certain vibration of woundedness that was then attracting current situations that were resonant for me, and would trigger that. It's very hard to explain, but it was attracting that kind of vibrational wounding of, I'm not good enough, I'm being misunderstood, I'm not being clear about things, or I'm being left out, or any of those very, very old wounds. That kind of vibration had risen to the surface without me knowing it. And then I was attracting things that I was reading, like on social media or whatever, that had nothing to do with me, but little buttons would get pushed to me where I'm like, wait, should I have been involved in that? Or was I left out? Or was I... Total nonsense. And I knew it up here. But here, the wounds were getting triggered. And so basically today my higher self was like, okay, so everything has risen to the surface, and in my little creativity, I represented them as old school Rolodexes, which is really bizarre. I think it's because I used to work in law firms, and I had a lawyer that I worked for that still used Rolodexes even like 10 years ago. So that's what I was seeing. And then every single card and every single one of those hundreds of Rolodexes represented a certain instance or flash in time or interaction or behavior with someone else, or in a work situation, or with family, or God, it covered everything. But little moments where my soul kind of took it in of like, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I've been, things have gone wrong and I don't have control over it. Just a lot of really old stuff. So again, I felt like a 13-year-old girl, like a really insecure middle schooler for a minute. And I was like, where is this coming from? Anyway, so all these Rolodexes came out, and she and I, my higher self, and I did a lot of work to transmute the energy, to burn it off, but transmute it into healed. And actually, it was cool. It was a big pile, and we kind of set it on fire with energy, but it was a cleansing, clearing energy. And I called in the violet flame of transmutation, so Saint Germain was helping me, and I called in some sun energies, so Apollo was helping me, and I did my own energy, and then she did hers, and it all kind of went up in, instead of turning into ashes, it kind of ended up reverse disintegrating into sparkles, I guess symbolizing that it was transmuted energy, it was healed, it was finally released. many decades of nonsense were fine, and these were all things that they were I want to stress, they were perceived slights or rejections or misunderstandings. They weren't all truth, and that's really clear. That was really clear to me. She said a lot of this is stuff that your soul kind of twisted because of your own fears and insecurities, and if you looked closely at the writing on some of these little cards, you would read the actual truth, and it had nothing to do with me, or I had misunderstood it, or I had jumped to conclusions, and this is all from when I was a lot younger. So she was really clear about knowing that, or explaining to me that what we hold within us, and however this shows for you, it would be kind of fun to see how it represents in your soul, your old wounds, your old trauma, any sort of old triggers, they aren't truth. They're how your soul has perceived things through other wounding, through a lens of wounding. And not to say that none of it's truth and you're totally misperceiving everything, but just to know that there's a balance, and that it's not like you have an enormous pile of things where you've been, it's very hard to explain, but a lot of it, for me at least, they were circumstances and issues that I think my soul kind of took and then misinterpreted because I already had wounding around this kind of thing, if this makes sense. It's hard for me to put it all out. I just had the meditation now, so I'm a little spacey, but I really wanted to explain the symbology to you of the idea of holding on to years, maybe even decades worth of very deep, like a very deep pattern of wounding. And to recognize when your soul's kind of like, you know what, it's time, we got to get rid of this stuff. Like for me, I'm like 40 years old. What am I doing with stuff from when I was a teenager? So it was really paramount for me to finally purge and to acknowledge too. I acknowledged these things, and I thanked all of these Rolodexes. It was like I talked to this pile, and I was like, thank you for trying to protect me, and I know why you're here, but it is time to go. This is old energy. I am in a very different place in my life, and it's not serving me to hold on to this anymore. So I just wanted to share that because it was a really neat cleansing and clearing, and I think it really goes with the whole moon. There's a lot of moon stuff going on this month, and it felt really neat, and I'm a little shaky because I felt like there's a big purging that happened. So I just wanted to share that because it might serve this month, as I know a lot of people are having some hard times, to go within and think, what are the repeated patterns that are getting super triggered, and do they want to show themselves symbolically? Like maybe you'll have some Rolodexes too, who knows? I can't get over that's how it showed. But to acknowledge the patterns, the long-standing patterns that are just really finally ready to go. I think people's buttons are getting pushed really hard repeatedly because the universe and spirit is like, come on guys, let's purge this, let's clear this energy so that you can make room for higher vibration energy, which is what it felt like it did for me today. So that's what I wanted to share. I will check in a little later and kind of see. Please let me know. Post if anything, any of this happens for you guys. This also speaks to. There was a post recently about do light workers trigger others, and I think that fits in with this. It gets very complicated because we have a lot of soul contracts with different people, and so sometimes we are actually meant to trigger them in ways that we're not consciously aware of, and it's not meant to cause harm. It's meant to help them heal and love, but it doesn't always go that way. So there are layers around that too, but that might be why I'm seeing a lot of strife lately and a lot of struggle among people. And I think, honestly, I just think people, like really deep old patterns of pain are getting triggered in people. So I just want to share that. It was kind of creative and it was fun. And now I'm Rolodex free as far as I know. There might be a few hiding in there, but I think I cleared them out. Okay, this is getting very long, so I just wanted to share that. I hope you're all doing well, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.